Welcome everybody to this CHAMP webinar on weight and balance, expanding freighter load planning to preighters. Good morning, evening or afternoon. My name is Bart-Jan Haasbeek. I am based in Amsterdam and I am CHAMP's Events and Engagement Manager. Last year we did 2 webinars on weight and balance with 2 different load masters sharing their experience on how to use the system. They mentioned performance increase, fuel saving, sustainability benefits, reducing cost and time, but today we will discuss the new reality and how we as an industry have adapted to this new reality, and also how weight and balance as well adapted to preighters. Before we move on, let me address a few housekeeping items. The duration of the webinar is about 45 minutes. All the data is fictitious. We will show you 2 demos, but it's fictitious data. And the audience today is everybody within the supply chain, but this is of course specifically for airlines. A recording will be sent tomorrow after the webinar. And if you have any questions, please use the tool and we will address them at the end of this webinar. In the meantime, we will ask you 2 questions via poll, and this is today a quiz style. And if you like to learn more, please do not hesitate to reach out to us by sending us an email, and we will show you the email on the last slide. Today's agenda, we will start with an introduction, then a high-level approach on how CHAMP adapted, and then the perspective from Ethiopian Airlines, how Ethiopian Airlines managed to the new normal with the weight and balance system. A live system demo, 2 demos for main deck and for freighter main deck and for preighters main deck. And then we have the full cargo operations from the ECS Group and their expectations for 2021 and beyond. And then we will have a short panel discussion and finally the summary and the Q&A. Today's panelists, let me introduce them. From Luxembourg and from the CHAMP office, we welcome Ruth Faber, Weight and Balance Product Management, John Martin, Weight and Balance Product Manager also from Luxembourg, and from the ECS Group, Sarah Scheibe, Director Global Operations based in Germany. And unfortunately, due to unforeseen urgent business requirements, Ethiopian Airlines could not make it today. We have the view from their perspective explained by our colleague Isha Knight, who will introduce herself in a minute. Let's move on to our first speaker, and that is Ruth Faber. Ruth, yes. Could you please kick off and shed some light on this new approach?
Yes, thank you, Bart-Jan. As you just mentioned, 1 year has passed since our last weight and balance webinar, and there we discussed the benefits of the specialized freighter weight and balance system at CHAMP. What has changed since then? Today, passenger aircrafts are mainly grounded due to the pandemic, and airlines have to find creative solutions to make much needed cargo capacity available so they can fly PPEs and also the much awaited vaccines nowadays. So airlines' challenge was to suddenly how to utilize this grounded fleet, and that is when many of them started converting the freighter passenger aircrafts into so-called preighters. And they did it by adapting the cabin space, removing seats, and accommodate large quantities of bulk cargo. This handling, however, had a catch, and this is time. And time is a very critical factor in aviation. So a new approach was needed beyond simply using a departure control system. And to explain you this term, a departure control system is more like a suite of applications that include passenger booking, the handling of their baggages, and everything that is related to that process. And this is what we want to explain to you today. What is the approach that CHAMP took to it? Batjan?
Thank you, Ruth. Let's go to 2 questions as mentioned, and I will now start that system and launch the first question. So the question is, how long do you think it takes to load plan bulk cargo into the seat positions on a freighter using DCS systems? How long do you think it takes to load plan bulk cargo into the seat positions on a freighter using DCS systems? 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 90 minutes. And I see that the first votes are getting in. So on average, and in a minute I will show you the answered results, but we will not show you the answer, what is the right answer. We will explain that later on during the webinar. And it looks very good. A lot of people are voting, very high percentage, so thank you for that. Let me close now this session and share you the results. And here you see that the winner is 46%, 30 minutes, followed by 42% of you who thinks it's 90 minutes. Like I said, the answer will be discussed momentarily. So let's now go to the second question, and that ties in a little bit with the first question. How fast do you expect CHAMP weight and balance to load plan the cabin of a freighter? So how fast do you expect CHAMP weight and balance to load plan the cabin of a freighter? Around 5 seconds, around 5 minutes, around 15 minutes. And here again, votes are getting in. And it's the same here. The answer will not be shared with you straight away during the poll session, but it will be mentioned during John's presentation, who will show you the difference between the freighter and the freighter weight and balance. Okay, again, very high results of voters, so thank you very much. It's exceptionally high this time, so that's good. We have a very engaged audience. Let's show the results here. The winner is 5 minutes. 42% of you think it will take 5 minutes. 35% says it takes 5 seconds, and 23% 15 minutes. Now let's see in a minute what the right answer is here. And let's move on with the webinar presentations. So let's go to our next speaker, and like I mentioned, unfortunately, this speaker was not available here due to urgent business requirements. So I would like to introduce to you Isha Knight. Isha, could you explain a little about what you do, and then share Ethiopian's perspective?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bart-Jan. So to start, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who has tuned in today, and, sorry for your expectations of perhaps seeing Ethiopian, instead of myself. My name is Isha Knight, and I'm working within the London office of CHAMP on the sales and account management team. I also work very closely with the weight and balance team within CHAMP, so it made just a sort of a perfect fit for me to step in on behalf of our customer Ethiopian. So just to give you all a sort of quick overview of maybe how this journey started and why we are really here today, demonstrating the innovation that we have made from our existing weight and balance product to the latest freighter let's say, existing weight and balance product. You know, we started working with Ethiopian back in 2012. They were actually our launch customer for our weight and balance product at that time. So, you know, when we were approached at the end of Q4 last year to see if we could help them with the passenger to freighter conversions, we absolutely snapped up the opportunity to see how we could collaborate further and enhance our existing weight and balance system. You will be taken through that more today as to how we made that possible and what's available to you. But just as an overview of Ethiopian, most of you here today will be more than aware that they are the largest cargo network operator in Africa with 66 dedicated destinations just for freighters. And they also have over 125 international belly hold destinations, which go over 5 different continents. Since we've seen the evolution of passenger aircrafts, you know, transitioning into the new freighter, Ethiopian have started and reconfigured 16 of the aircrafts within their fleet, and that really varies from the 787 Dreamliners to the 777s and also to the A350s that we also support within our weight and balance tool. As mentioned, Ethiopian contacted Champ at the end of last year asking if there was anything we could do to collaborate and to assist them with the loading of the new passenger conversion, and this is really where all of this started. As you can see, Ethiopian actually began testing in January this year, so we were able to move very quickly with a solution. So a lot of people were questioning, and you know, we received a lot of interest from our clients and our portfolio existing clients already as to how could we enhance the system that we already have. So you may be wondering today, how did we manage to do this? How did we manage to make a tool go from, you know, only being available to the freighter network to now also being available to the passenger conversions? And you know, we really worked very well together, as we mentioned, with Ethiopian to make this possible. So I will not go into detail about that now, but John will certainly show you that a little bit later in this webinar today. The next really important thing for us to get across today is what are the benefits of the tool? Why would you actually need this right now? Well, we are a community software provider, and as I mentioned, a lot of our customers reached out to us to ask us to further help them and support them in the loading of their aircrafts, you know, removing all of the seats, and how can they make sure that they are staying, you know, firstly within the restrictions that they have, everything is remaining safe. So we managed to do this and really create more efficiency and ensure that there is an optimal load of capacity through our tool, also on the passenger conversions, not only just the fully fledged freighters. The system can, you know, there was a poll question earlier. One of the answers was that our system can actually help you to load plan within 5 seconds. So John will also show you this a little bit later. That's a key thing to recognize. It's a very fast setup because it is actually a hosted software solution. So there's no need to download the software to your system. You can literally use it web-based. And there's also something else that's very beneficial, which some of our customers ask is, can we use it without a Wi-Fi connection, without an internet connection? The answer is yes. It does come as a standalone version as well. So that can be later explained to you, or perhaps we can have a one-to-one after this to explain that to anyone who's interested as well. The final question here is it really necessary? So we know that this has really been a reaction to COVID. We know that this hopefully will not continue for always, and we really don't know for how much longer we will see these preighters in our skies. Having attended some recent virtual events, you know, within the aviation industry, there tends to be a lot of discussion around the length of time that we can foresee these preighters continuing for. And based on what I found, you know, it seems that we are expecting this to last for at least 6 to 12 months, because it's quite a big exercise what the airlines are having to do to change their aircraft, remove the seats with the cabling, etc. So airlines simply wouldn't be doing this and really transitioning their aircraft if they foresaw maybe only 1 more month or 2 more months of this being the solution for us. So on top of that, If you are currently using a manual way to load plan, or you're using Excel, or you have a DCS system that is taking you, at least 90 minutes, this could be the solution for you because it's very fast and it's efficient. Thank you, Bart-Jan.
Thank you, Aisha. That was very insightful and also very well done for such a last-minute change in the schedule to deliver this on behalf of Ethiopian. Very, very nice. Very well done. So let's move on, and hopefully you can stay on to answer a few questions later on as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. So let's go to John, who will explain us the demo and show us the demo, explain us how weight and balance works. We will run a movie, and John will talk live over the movie. So let's do that, and I will now see. Yeah, please,
Thank
John.
you, Bart-Jan. Yes, I'm very pleased to show you our weight and balance system. The first part, a refresher of what we already had in place. And Chamber Cargo Systems has a state-of-the-art weight and balance application for load planning full freighter aircraft, which has been in use with major cargo airlines for over 8 years now. Up until now, the focus has always been on wide-bodied pure freighters. It works on a linear calculation system, providing 100% accuracy and ease of use for the user. Gone are the days of the old analog approach, flimsy paper load sheets, calculators, pens, and rulers. By simply logging into the load planning screen, the user sees his flight prepared for loading by systems that could have populated payloads by standard UWS message, Excel upload, or manual entries. Today, we're looking at a Boeing 747-400F on a multi-leg flight. The load planner simply views his load and decides where he would like to load them, and most commonly used is a simple drag and drop system. And the system is fully dynamic. So as the load planner updates his flight, the system allows the customer to see it dynamically updated at all times. The system also allows the user to build their own specific business rules that will prevent any errors, such as trying to load a 3-meter high pallet into a lower deck position. A pop-up will notify the user of the error and prevent the action. So that way the user is always aware of what is going on and any possible errors. But the system also incorporates a state-of-the-art auto load function. So we will clear this particular load that we have on board. The zero fuel weight center of gravity is the key. So the auto load function, whereby setting a zero fuel weight center of gravity for optimum fuel burn and thus improving economics and also the green footprint. The load planner simply selects auto load, and in this case, the zero fuel weight target is 28%. The auto load function has aimed to achieve this target of 28% and achieved 27.99 in under 5 seconds, loading 43 ULDs. They're also sequenced for ease of loading at the ongoing stations. So the first station's ULDs are loaded by the door, and the following destinations follow on in sequence. The weight and balance systems data is in compliance with manufacturer's weight and balance control manual using formulas instead of tables, thereby reducing tedious data entry at system setup and therefore reducing potential for human error in that setup. But in today's world, as we've already heard discussed, things have changed, and passenger airlines are now starting to utilize their passenger fleets to move freight. And we will show you how we have adapted to that shortly. Thank you, Bart-Jan.
Thank you, John. That was very informative indeed. This must be really one of my favorite products in Champ, as it's core cargo. It's also digitizing, so digitizing a process which is now a manual process. It's improving the environment. Yeah, it is really, like I said, very informative. So we now go from the freighter main deck to the preighter main deck. But before we do that, Ruth mentioned something about the DCS system. So John, why is the process of loading freight onto the passenger deck using a DCS system so difficult?
Well, as Ruth mentioned earlier, the DCS system is in effect a suite of products that is designed specifically for use by a passenger airline, incorporating passenger booking, the check-in functions, the handling of their baggage, and so on. And the approach with passengers, as you're not working to very high weight limits, they're able to take a much more average approach, average passenger weights, and trimming the aircraft by individual seat rows or zone areas and calculating from the centroid of those areas. When you're going to use an aircraft for moving freight and you're trying to use the maximum capacity of that aircraft, you will now be pushing the limits. And so you really, really need accuracy as well as speed. Individual passenger seat and passenger seat row loading is very, very time consuming, but I'm sure we will discuss more about that later.
Yes, let's have a look at it now and see also the 5 seconds that you promised us. So
promised nothing.
Oh, but okay, it was mentioned, of course. We said 5 seconds, yeah. Okay, let's go.
As was mentioned earlier, Champ was approached in December to look at adapting the freighter load planning system so that we can accommodate passenger aircraft loading freight in the cabin. In this particular instance, we will look at an Airbus A350-900. So once again, the load planner will log into his flight and view the available load. Any moment now.
It's still running.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for this lazy load planner to finish getting his coffee and log into his flight. So here we see the aircraft. You can see here that the lower decks are utilized in exactly the same way as they would be during their passenger operations. So these lower deck positions have been loaded with the usual pallets and bulk cargo in compartment 51. Using a DCS system is exceptionally time consuming, especially if they take the approach of loading individual weights and consignments into individual seats or seat rows. When Champ was approached to see if we could find a solution, we came up with the approach that the main deck should be regarded in exactly the same way as we do on the freighters. However, instead of doing individual seat rows, we took these zones. For example, here we see the business class seating area. This area is ignored because that is where galleon toilets would be. Then we have the first of the economy class sections over the wing. Again, galley areas. The aft area of the economy class cabin, followed by the final galleon toilet areas. So we took the concept of treating each of these areas as an individual position defined to accept bulk cargo. So now Instead of taking up to 90 minutes to individually load seats and seat rows, we now simply make a zone load of bulk cargo, drag and drop into the associated positions in seconds. I'm not going to specify 3 or 5 seconds. It depends how quickly the user likes to drag his mouse. But as you can see, it's very fast. And the way the weight is placed in those positions, our linear approach to it divides the entire weight into individual balance arms in the positions of the aircraft. So we comply with 100% accuracy and structural limitations, which can be defined by the user in the business rules that they build into the template that we provide for them. Once they've load planned their airplane, as we can see in a moment, Bart-Jan, they can then go ahead and produce the loading instruction and the load sheet. And the load planning, we had been informed, sometimes took longer than the physical loading of the airplane. So Bart-Jan, thank you for that video, and I'll just explain briefly the loading instruction and the load sheet.
Yes, John, here you have them.
Indeed, on the left top, you will see our standard loading instruction form, which follows the basic rule used by all airlines, which is clear and concise for the loading team to go ahead and load as per the load plan. And on the bottom right, you will see our graphical load sheet, which our freighter operators like to use in preference to the IATA one, which is presented to the captain, from which he makes his calculations from the weight and balance information shown to him there to calculate his takeoff power settings, etc., etc. Thank you, Bart-Jan.
Thank you, John. So yeah, this is the only piece of paper still in existence then around this topic, I think, because it needs the signatures. So that has not been digitized yet.
Well, the world is moving in that direction too, with the evolution of the electronic flight bag, as it's called, the EFB, whereby a lot of these documents now, like the load sheet, can be sent by ACARS direct to the aircraft itself in electronic format. And also a lot of these documents you've just seen will also be increasingly commonly used in an electronic format. But yes, we still have paper out there.
Yes.
For old people like me.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I've learned something here. It was great to see also the sections of the main deck where the passenger seats are, and also how we adopted to the new normal now with preighters. So let's also now go to our next speaker, Sarah Scheibe from the ECS Group. And Sarah can tell us more about the operational side of the preighters, which are also from the airlines they represent in the ECS Group. Sarah, could you please explain a bit more about total cargo expertise by the ECS Group?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Bart-Jan, for the introduction. Of course, everyone knows ECS as a worldwide leading sales agent representing a lot of airlines, but ECS can do a lot of more things than just being a sales agent. I think we are really focused on GSSA, including our new brand, or not completely new, but relatively new brand, Total Cargo Expertise. Where we can offer tailor-made solutions to airlines, and if they choose the full package, then we are somehow the outsourced cargo department. That they really give the whole control from marketing, planning, audits, and everything to us. We have a full management system for cargo operations, quality, safety, security related topics, including a claims department that will do all the claims handling, which is sometimes for airlines a difficult situation. We have global operations and sales offices on more than 100 stations. All our systems are already working. We are already working with Champ, so even this system can be linked easily to us. We do customs reporting and also our bookings with Champ systems. We have a fully IOSA certified quality auditors for compliance and quality assurance that are traveling all our stations worldwide and check that everything is in compliance with the regulations and also, of course, with the airline demands. We have created also in IOSA compliance a complete operations manual where we always incorporate the specialties of the airlines, so that the handling agents easily have just one manual to follow and not need to look out for 20 different manuals. Our network is already covering more than 290 stations worldwide with contracts of handling agents and also a worldwide trucking network. You see down there in the middle of the slide our management team. Of course, we are the ones leading this whole show, and we can offer, as I said, tailor-made solutions. So every airline could pick just one part or two parts, or if they take every puzzle part, then it is the full total cargo management system. Well, this COVID situation or pandemic, made the normal business of our charter and airlines, quite different, I would say. The normal load into a scheduled PAX operation was all of a sudden not possible anymore because the PAX scheduled operation was down to zero. So we adapted very fast in cooperation with our airlines that they also let's say, converted their normal cargo passenger airlines to preighters. Partly they removed their seats. We started with the first flights end of April, beginning of May, mainly with, of course, the PPE charters out of China, because that was the main demand at that time. Since then, we developed very fast and very successful, I have to say, with our airline partners. You see the timeline there. Now we have operated more than 700 charters already, sometimes 10 daily charters with the preighters operation. So it's quite successful at the moment. And of course, this new challenge brought us a bit to this problem we never had before with the scheduled PAX operation in weight and balance and trim loading. There is a big demand at the moment in the automotive industry, where we have heavy pallets. And there, of course, sometimes the trim and weight and balance calculation makes a big difference if a flight can depart or not. The final load plan and weight and balance calculation is still done by the airlines, not by us. But whenever we prepare our load plan, and that's why we test the system of Champ currently, it is very helpful, of course, for us to have as early as possible at least a reliable feedback if our load plan could be in trim for weight and balance purpose or not, instead of waiting for the final load plan calculation of the airline and then not having any reaction time anymore to adapt and maybe change the loads on the PMCs, or to move some cargo in the bulk to have some more ballast in the back or something like this. So for this, the test so far runs very smooth, and it's a very useful tool to really have immediate answers what took us before even sometimes hours to prepare. If we talk about the expectations, I think, still the forecast looks a bit better now, but not too good for the scheduled passenger operations. I think they are starting slowly, at least steadily, but slowly still. So the demand for preighters, will continue. That's at least our forecast for the future. For the next month minimum until the end of the year, maybe even longer. I mean, to make forecasts at the moment is a difficult thing, because 2 years ago, if someone would tell me all borders and all normal passenger operation, scheduled operation is down to zero, I would tell them you are crazy. But I think we were all a bit surprised by this by this change, what the pandemic shows us. And also there's still this big discussion about the vaccine charters, of course, where we are also prepared and completely ready with a full manual in compliance with GDP guidelines and working on the certification as well in parallel. So I think this is still something what will be our partner and project at least until end of the year. That's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that was very interesting. Let's go to some questions, and I will start with asking you a question, Sarah. But before that, the audience, it is now time also to ask us questions using the tool, because after this we will do the Q&A and answer your questions. So Sarah, you mentioned 10 daily charters, even sometimes. So I assume these are preighters. And do you see airlines within your group who are now also planning scheduled preighters? So not only the charters, but more of a scheduled service.
Well, one of our airline partner indeed is thinking now, having this cargo potential in mind, to have continuously beside the passenger operations at least some cargo flights operating, preighters operating, maybe even convert this aircraft to a full freighter. That is also in the discussion. Of course, that's then a business case that needs to be discussed. But to really talk about forecast and scheduled operation, I think it's a very, the demand is there, and you can get maybe a forecast. So let's say a schedule for the next 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe up to a month, but not really a schedule for the next year or something like this.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yes. Yeah, it's all very new, of course, and to schedule them, if you can do them chartered as well. Yeah. Yes, indeed. So question then to Ruth. Ruth, how is the CHAMP weight and balance approach different?
To a DCS system, you mean?
No, in general. So how is it?
Oh,
how
sorry.
is the...
Yes, sorry, I misunderstood. So CHAMP's weight and balance has moved away from analog and manual approach using tables and numbers on a manual load sheet, and has accommodated a linear approach. And as John already mentioned, with the linear approach, that idea comes from the Boeing manual. The system is in a linear fashion interpolating weights over a graph, and it is always 100% accurate and never exceeds any structural limits of the aircraft. John, would you like to expand on that one a little bit further?
Yeah, just briefly, I think a lot of people are confused by the concept of the linear approach. For those that are familiar with manual load sheets and seeing the large tables where the planner has to select the nearest figure to his actual weight, if you took that table and plotted it on a graph, you would end up with what I always call a step graph. So on the outer parts of those steps, it's actually possible to exceed the structural limitations of the aircraft. And on the inner part of the step, you actually limit yourself more than is necessary. Whereas the data in the manufacturer's manual has a graph that has maybe 2 or 3 points on it. So the initial data entry is much quicker, less possibility of human error, and then the calculation is a linear line between those two, so it always remains 100%. So it's speed, safety, and accuracy.
Okay, thank you, John and Ruth. And Isha, I don't want to put you on the spot here too much, but you're here now anyway, so I would like to ask you a question. Maybe you do not really know the answer, but this is what I would ask Ethiopian now also. Could you explain a little bit about the implementation of weight and balance for Ethiopian? Do you have any insight on that?
A brief insight, yes, and maybe I can give more of a general sort of overview of what an implementation would look like if a customer was interested in the weight and balance. it's very quick. We can say that, you know, last year we managed to implement a few customers actually. I hate to say because sometimes it sets expectations, but within 4 weeks. So it is a very fast solution. Of course, we need to work with the airline to establish, you know, the correct timeline that fits for both parties. But it is indeed a very quick solution, and the team has really managed to bring together a technical solution so that in the initial stages when we're working together, if we receive, you know, the airline manuals, for example, then we can also sort of get a head start with the implementation really from the information that we receive day one of our communications.
Okay, perfect. And Sarah, could you comment on that? It has been implemented with the ECS, although you are testing and trialing the system, but what can you say about the implementation and how you use it?
Well, as I said, it helps us a lot to get at least a quick info on especially these automotive charters with a heavy weights on the trim and on the weight and balance, and then also to challenge the airlines a bit to say, I mean, if your loadmaster has a different opinion, we checked it as well. So it gives us more reaction time and also to challenge a bit, the decision maybe sometimes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, indeed. So this is also one of the questions that already came in from the audience. So that has now been answered. So let's now move forward. We have 5 minutes to go into the session, and it's still time to ask us questions. Let's go to the summary of today. Ruth, could you summarize what we have discussed?
Yes, indeed. And I think it was a very thrilling and interesting webinar today on this hot topic of freighter operations, which indeed is, as Sarah also mentioned, a crisis-driven and a short to medium-term phenomenon that we all noticed last year, and we were challenged by it. And it required from everybody a new and more efficient load planning approach. We were eyeing it very early in the process of the start of the pandemic, and we were lucky to engage with Ethiopian at the end of the year to really develop these new aircraft types into our system. And our weight and balance is an industry-leading freighter weight and balance, very specific, but it was ideally suited to support this transformation of the passenger aircraft into the temporary freighter, because we are able to give this 100% accuracy. And as Sarah just mentioned, it helps to challenge the load masters who are with the DCS system very limited and sometimes I think more restricted than with our system that gives them much more option to go to the capacity of their aircraft. It's a lifeline that we throw, and we are very much looking forward to getting a lot of feedback after this webinar to support other airlines. Thank you, Bart-Jan.
Thank you, Ruth. We only have a few minutes for questions, so I will raise a few, and let's keep the answers a bit short, and we can answer more questions, please. So somebody asked a tech question. How do you control the max weight per position in the cabin? And then overview, what's the main advantage to use jam weight and balance instead of global DCS? So this person asked two questions. First, how do you control the max weight per position in the cabin? I think John.
Yeah, okay, well, this is defined in a variety of ways. It's mainly from the aircraft manufacturer's weight and balance manual. They advise what the structural limitations are in any range of the aircraft fuselage. However, some customers will also wish to put their own individual restrictions on there, which can be done within the aircraft template, which the customer will own the data in there. They can set their own weight limits for that area, so long as they do not exceed the linear structural limits. So they may just use floor loading, or they may use floor loading plus the capacity of the overhead bins above. So it's defined, one, by the manufacturer, and then two, by the airline's own internal rules. And the advantage over the DCS, as we saw earlier and explained, the time taken to load in individual seats or seat rows for maybe an aircraft of 300 seats, compared to what you saw there with defining a complete position where you simply drag and drop in a second. I think that explains the advantage.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's have a few more questions with short answers. Is it, as an airline, can you use weight and balance only for preighters? Ruth is nodding yes.
Yes, yes, we are actually lucky to say yes. This is also new. If you are a passenger airline and you have converted your passenger aircraft into preighters, we are able to now support these aircraft types fully with our solution.
Okay, now a trick question from the audience also. Is CHAMP also able to hybrid passenger/cargo in cabin flights, and can it apply auto load in those flights? Is CHAMP also able to do hybrid passenger/cargo in cabin flights, and can it apply auto load in those flights?
No, because that would then start to adopt the passenger approach, which is not linear as in ours. They're done by seat rows and by seat zones. So you can't mix the two concepts. But from what you've seen earlier, the auto load in some ways is a little redundant, because the drag and drop is as quick as the auto load functionality.
Yes, thank you. There are more questions. We will answer the questions via email to the people who raised them individually. So your questions will be answered. We are out of time now. It was very interesting, to say the least. I would like to thank the audience. Please stay safe. See you at the next webinar, and of course, thank you panelists. Sarah, Ruth, John, and Isha. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.